Forget this, I'm not getting outside today. Look at that snow. All happened in less than a day. Oh, I know. I could do a YouTube video. Yeah. Hello everyone, this is Leeway Model. Today, I've got something very special for you. If you remember a couple of months ago, I showed you this, which is a vintage locomotive that I restored in the Chesapeake and Ohio livery. Now, this locomotive dated back from the 1950s. In fact, if you want to know more about it, I'm going to put a link right there on top of the screen or in the video description if you can't see it. Now, why am I showing you this? This is not what I'm featuring today. This was made by Lionel during their golden era. Now, in the 1960s, model trains started to lose a bit of popularity, and in fact, the model train industry as a whole started to have some difficulties. So a lot of transactions were made, and Lionel actually got purchased in 1969 by General Mill. Yeah, the company that makes cereal boxes. But today I have something very special to show you. And it's this here. In fact, this locomotive is so historically important, I have no idea why nobody talks about it. And in fact, why it completely vanished from the collective mind of most model railroader today, which are still collecting Lionel, by the way, because the Lionel as a brand is still out there, but not as a standalone company. Now, let me just unpack it first, and then I'll talk a bit about it. So, obviously, what you see here, I did purchase this used. This is not the original packaging, but it is in fairly good condition, so I'm actually pretty happy I got it, especially concerning how historically important this model is. And there you go. Now, just a quick fun fact, the road number for this is 2024, though 2024, and I actually purchased this at the end of 2024. It just took a while for it to arrive here in Canada. Now, just as a coincidence, it's also in the exact same livery as that older 1950s vintage model that I showed you earlier, the Chesapeake in Ohio, with that yellow stripe on top here. Main difference here is that this is all plastic, and it's also much lighter compared to the 1950 era's model that I have right off camera right here. And what I mean by much lighter, I mean more than half the weight of the other one. So this locomotive, why is it that important? Well, let me just take out a couple of notes I took here. So turns out that the 2024 Chesapeake and Ohio Alco A diesel has the distinction of being the very last train item introduced by the original Lionel Corporation. It was introduced and in a catalog for just 1 year, 1969, the year that they got purchased by General Mill, and it was also in one of the train set that they've put out. So 1969 was also the final year that Lionel made train by themselves. What I find a bit baffling, like I told you, is that this model being the very last one made by Lionel, that would classify as one of the post-war era Lionel locomotive, I would say, the demand is very low, and you can actually get this for a very low price if you can find one, because these are, it's not that they're expensive, they're actually quite hard to come by, being that they were only produced for 1 year, and again, that they pretty much fell out of the model railway collective memory, I guess. So some standard feature that we can find on this, first of all, that is not painted, it's just a body made out of plastic, and that's blue plastic. You will notice that in terms of the livery itself, the yellow that you have right here is actually pretty well made for the 1960s, very crisp. It does have a couple of scratches on it, but again, this is not a new model. It's a fairly old model. It does have a couple of molded details which are interesting, and it does have glazing. Also, in terms of features, you can see easily that they've actually cut a couple of corners with this model compared to the earlier one. First of all, if you take a look right here, those Alco diesels, sometimes they had some glazing with road numbers on those little plates on the corner there. This one does not. And if you take a look at the coupler right here, let me just show you that here. These couplers, they're fixed. If I compare these to others that you might have seen, usually you're able to open them up, but it seems like that the company being in financial difficulties, they've actually had to cut a couple of corners there, and hence why you're going to find that, yeah, those couplers here, they are actually much simpler than the one that you would find on the earlier one, like this. And if you notice closely, this part would open up using a dedicated piece of track. Now let's take a look at some of the details you're going to find on this. If I just pan it slowly right here, you're going to find everything is mostly molded, with the notable exceptions of the glazing right here. The lens of the headlight right here, that actually works. That metal horn that you have right here, and everything else, I mean, is pretty much molded. And the way to remove that shell right here is just remove that screws, and then the shell will pop up like that. Now if we take a look on the roof, again, we got that metal horn right here. This is actually to engage the motor, so that if you don't want to use that train, you can actually turn it off and still operate with your controller the locomotive you want to operate. We do have that large grill right here that does not have a fan underneath, but again, for a 1960 era models, you can pretty much figure that out. Again, proudly boasting, built by Lionel for the very last time. That was actually true. Now if we take a look on the undercarriage right here, you will notice that the bogies, like the exterior of it, is actually made out of plastic compared to the one that were die-cast on the 1950s era model. You will also notice that you have those rollers right here to pick up electricity from the center rail. You do have some of the pickups right here with the gearbox, or what I would pretty much call the gearbox right here, that would select if the locomotive goes forward or reverse. So only this this one here is actually motorized. As you can see, you got some cogs right here, and this one actually works pretty good. I've already tested prior to this video, because again, with old models, you never know. I was told that the 2024 normally has traction tires on them, and from what I can see, this one does not seem to have it. Like this here, it's just being worn out on the rail itself. Doesn't look like it's a traction tire at all. Yep, so if you find one out there that does have a traction tires, it seems that some of these were made with them. Again, these models are, you know, very light compared to the older ones. If you also take a look, this looks almost like all tin plate, as opposed to being cast like what you have right here, which was actually pretty thick metal. And yep, gives you a general idea of the differences between a model that was made in the 1950s and the model that was made at the very last end of the production, that was made by Lionel itself. So let me just put this on the track, and then we'll see it run for a couple of turns, and I'll give you my general impression about it. It's a very old model, but I'm very glad I got that one. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, the locomotive is now down on the track. So let me just explain you what this setup is. These are the MTH real tracks, which are actually pretty good looking tracks. This is not the original tracks that you could expect back in the 1960s of seeing those. They're actually much more reliable, made out of nickel silver as opposed to aluminum, and they also look much better. Now, powering this, we have the Vitaman Flash Speed 300 that I already made a video about. If you want to see it, more details about it will be right here on top or down in the description if you can't see that link over there. And powering this, I have this train controller right here, which is the Lionel Power Max. Pretty basic controller, but it's also a modern one. So let me start up by saying that some of this locomotive, again, was made under certain cost-cutting mentality. So it actually does not have a horn, does not have a bell, but it does run. So, and it does have a headlight. The couplers on the back and the front, they are not mechanical, they are fixed. So I'm not 100% sure how it will couple with that freight car over there, but that freight car does have one of the mechanical coupler made out of metal. So let me just get this moving, and we'll try to see if it will couple. So as you saw, it actually coupled still, even if it's fixed. So while it is a cost-cutting feature, it does not prevent the locomotive from working as it should. Now, just a slight reminder on how the direction works on those Lionel post-war trains. Now, you do have what I called a gearbox during the close-up on it. It's not an actual gearbox, but it acts like one. So it actually goes forward, then you cut power, it switches it to neutral. Now, if you apply power, it will be in neutral, just makes a whole bunch of noise. Once you cut power, it's going to go to reverse. And once you cut power again, it will go to neutral again. So it actually cycled through like that. So if you see me turning on the power and turning off several times to change direction, it's just the way that those old model works. So let's just look at it run around the tracks right here and see if everything goes well and if it doesn't derail or anything like that. Okay, so even considering its age and the fact that I have not even serviced it before having it run here, I gotta say that it's still pretty reliable. Now the thing is, yes, you will see some sparks. I would not worry too much about it, because all of those Lionel, when they get older, well, they all tend to do that, really. So let me wrap everything up, and we'll get back to close view, and I'll give you my final thought on it. So what do I think about the Chesapeake and Ohio road number 2024 made by Lionel? I gotta say, it certainly feels like this model was the last one that was built by that company. We do have some cost-cutting measures that were applied all around the models to make it out of the factory. The company was in financial trouble at that point, and yes, unfortunately, it shows a bit. Now the thing is, just for the sheer importance value of this being the last model of an era, it still baffles me how cheap you can still get this. As an example, I was able to get that particular one for around $35 plus $10 shipping in United States dollars. Now, considering I picked this off of eBay, usually the price tends to be a lot more steep for any types of model train um, when you purchased it over there. Now, would I recommend that you go out there and just buy one instantly? Is it like 100% perfect, the pinnacle of what Lionel has built? Unfortunately, no, it's not. There is some cost cutting that was made on this model, and it actually shows. The model itself feels excessively light. Unfortunately, I could not weight it down today because my scale is not with me right now. But I can tell you that this model is about between 1/3 and half the weight of the older one right here. There's a lot of thin metal that was used instead of a big, thick, heavy metal plate right here. The bogie themselves are also made out of cheap plastic. Although being made in 1969, you can see that it still holds pretty well. It's pretty prone to scratches, as you can see. There's a whole bunch of scratches everywhere. One last thing I can mention is that I think that, unlike what I said earlier, this model must have come with traction tires, because if you have noted during the running session, it actually was going pretty slow, although the wheels were spinning at near maximum. So this would explain also why all of those wheels are that shiny. I mean, there actually is a lot of wheel slipping with the model. Finally, I've been saying that Lionel had this model in its catalog for only 1 year, and it was their last year. Obviously, Lionel is still around. They're still kicking model trains market as of 2025. I mean, the brand itself is not there. The company of standalone building trains and toys by themselves is gone, but the brand still lives on. And this model here, I think it was still a pretty good way of finishing the post-war era lineup. It looks good from a distance, but just be mindful that it does have its shortcoming compared to today's model, obviously. On that note, this was Leeway Model. I hope everyone had a very good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Leeway Model out.